Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. Hello all of you. It's so good to see you all here, and thank you so much for being us with us today. And we have a majority of the audience from the Philippines. It is so good to see you all here. So, so let's talk about the today's webinar. Actually, this webinar is about the teaching language and literature for sustainable development. So, this webinar has been divided into three parts. In the first part, we will conduct the webinar, and then in the second part, we will have a question and answer session. And the last, we will start the process of distributing certificate. So at that time, you will get the feedback form link which you have to fill in order to get certificate. So please stay with us till the end. So now I welcome the speaker of the today. Hello, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Adil, for the acknowledgement and for the recognition.
Yes,
Good
sir.
morning,
So,
everyone. It's 11:59 here in Spain, and good evening in the Philippines, and good afternoon in Pakistan. Am I right? And
yes,
some
sir.
other countries, good day. It is my pleasure to be given this privilege to initiate this 45-minute webinar, more or less, 45-minute webinar to share my expertise relative to English language teaching. Okay? But allow me first to briefly and quickly introduce myself. I am Professor Osmar Labajo, and I have been passionately teaching for 13 years now. And I am originally from the Philippines, and now I am teaching here in Spain. I love language and literature, and I am very interested in linguistics and literature, also in pedagogy. That's why I don't stop learning about these things so that I can also stop teaching others about this because I believe this is a mission entrusted to me, a mission entrusted to all of us. Okay, so that's it. And we all know how language evolves from time to time. I know everyone knows about it. In fact, the emergence of globalization yields to the emerging creation of varieties of English, which is now called World Englishes. And aside from its emerging changes, the language curricula also should respond to the needs of the present situations, of course. From, as far as you remember, from the traditional four walls of the classroom to distance learning or e learning, e-learning in which learning takes place anywhere. Okay, therefore we teachers need to adapt to this paradigm shift or else we fail to feed the knowledge, the values and the skills that the learners need to acquire. And of course, we should not forget the very reason why language is taught in our education system, even if language is learned naturally and spontaneously without learning it formally in school, without receiving formal instruction. We can learn language anywhere and anytime. But why is it taught in school? Why is it offered in the curriculum? Why is it learned in our education system? Because we need to instill values and skills in the use of language, not only to learn its grammatical structures. Because the end goal, we should always remember this, the end goal of language teaching and learning is effective and purposive communication across different cultures around the globe. Okay, so apart from this, language teaching nowadays also should be geared towards the goals of the United Nations and the UNESCO, which is the sustainable development. I think all of us are very much familiar about the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. So how can we develop learners' communication skills that would be very useful in achieving the sustainable development goal? That is why today I'm presenting to you the webinar titled Teaching English for Sustainable Development. Let me know if you see it. Do you see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay. But now let me first tell you about the learning goals of this webinar.
Sir,
At the end of this
uh,
webinar,
sir,
everyone is.
so, sir, sorry to interrupt, but it is not visible.
Did you see the PowerPoint presentation?
No, sir. Or let me, sir, share. Let me share
Okay,
slides.
okay, okay,
Or is it visible?
okay. Thank you, Sir Adil. Let us proceed to the next slide. Okay, the learning goals. At the end of this webinar, everyone is expected to achieve the following learning goals. I have written here 4 learning goals that we need to achieve, more or less. Okay, the first one is to acquire and develop pedagogical skills to meet the goals of the UNESCO Sustainable Development. We are going to talk about different classroom activities in language teaching that develop highly critical skills among learners, especially in contextualizing the SDG. Okay? The second goal is to tailor fit language learning tasks supplemented by multicultural paradigms. The paradigm of multiculturalism is very crucial because nowadays, with the advent of technology and emergence of globalization, the world is getting smaller and we are all connected. Therefore, the integration of multiculturalism in language teaching is also very essential. Okay, and the fourth goal to acquire pedagogical skills utilized in the fourth industrial revolution. In the fourth industrial revolution, or we call it education 4.0, students should be equipped with the necessary skills to meet the demands of the changing world, of course. So as a teacher, we should prepare them based on our activities that would harness their skills. Okay, and the fourth one is to manage students' behavior in language classroom, in the ELT classroom. Actually, students find second language learning difficult and threatening, most of them. They really find second language learning difficult and threatening. Therefore, it is our task, teachers, to provide positive and, of course, non-threatening environment for and for our students to make our lesson vibrant and active, and to make also language acquisition very spontaneous and not inactive. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. This one. Okay, since nearly all countries in the world have promised to improve the planet and the lives of its citizens by 2030 based on the agreement signed by the United Nations along with the UNESCO, which is outlined the Sustainable Development Goal, which aims, this goal actually aims to end somehow extreme poverty, giving people better health care, achieving equality for women. And also these goals will not be carried out, of course, out unless the education itself works for it. The curriculum, therefore, should reform to achieve these goals, the SDG. And such curriculum develops student skills and values in order for our learners to be the instruments of achieving these goals. And how do we develop student skills in order to achieve these goals? How do we teach English or language? Actually, this webinar is not only for English teachers. This is also intended for all teachers who teach language. Okay, so how do we teach language and literature that develop student skills in achieving the SDG goals? And what teaching activities should we provide so as to achieve these following goals? Okay, but first, let us quickly, because the time is limited, let us quickly talk a little bit about each of the following goals. The first one is no poverty. This is developing skills among learners to make them well equipped with the jobs in the future. And this is also to make them employed easily. Therefore, they should have the certain language skills like service orientation, or even what else? Coordination with others, and also, of course, complex problem solving. So how can we use these skills? How can we develop these skills in language and literature teaching? Okay. The second one is zero hunger. This is actually correlated with the no poverty mentioned in the first part, but this talks about the values of generosity, more in values, generosity and altruism. Therefore, learners should develop the values of generosity and kindness while developing their skills, as well as their skills in complex problem solving. Okay, the third one is good health and well-being. This goal is achieved in most cases by making our language learners develop the skills in emotional intelligence, which is very important. And developing emotional intelligence in language teaching is mostly learned in literature, where they value their own self. There are lots of activities to be mentioned earlier about developing students' EQ, or emotional intelligence. Okay. And then the fourth one is the quality education, the focal point of this webinar. Quality education is effective. When do we say that education is effective? When can we say about that? Quality education is effective not because our learners are smart and intelligent, but because they are able to solve problems in the society based on what they are learning, or based on what they have acquired. Therefore, pragmatic language in language and literature teaching, or pragmatic language learning, which we say about that, is important, where students communicate with the government, with other social institutions, and of course with the other entities and organizations. Okay, the fifth one, gender equality. This has been part of our curriculum actually. Gender equality is even taught in writing, right? And even the use of vocabulary, especially with the use of pronouns. We have observed about that. The pronouns, for example, he or she, instead of only using he for both gender, especially if the gender is not implied, we are using he slash she. So non-sexist in language is also taught, like the use of what word? For example, like the use of the general word, like the use of the word flight attendant, instead of using stewardess and steward. Stewardess for women and steward for men. So we use flight attendant for both men and women instead of using the specific gender word. Okay. Another example is the use of the word chairperson instead of using chairman and chairwoman. Okay. So we are observing that also in language teaching. And then the sixth one, clean water and sanitation. This is the integration of natural sciences or any disciplines in ELT, in language teaching, or developing student skills in judgment, of course, and decision making and complex problem solving. Okay. And then the seventh one, affordable and clean energy. This is another integrative learning, a language teaching, another integrated language teaching to social sciences. Language teaching should be integrated to other fields that allow students to learn sciences in language. Okay? And then the eighth one, decent work and economic growth. This is to develop student skills in service orientation and people management. They should know how to manage people of different cultures. And of course, the development of the leadership skills among our students to lead the community for establishing strong economy. Okay. And number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. This is to develop student skills in, shall we say, creativity, okay, innovation, cognitive flexibility, the critical thinking skills, and the complex problem solving. We can make our students also to be a scientist, Not some are saying if you want to become a scientist, you should study science very much. But we can also make our students a scientist or an inventor in language or in literature, not only in sciences. There are many language activities that allow students to solve problems and make them present ideas in creative or innovative manners. Okay, number 10, reduce inequalities. This is to raise power and equal rights in the community, like the prevalence of injustices, okay, and to eradicate racism, what else? Bullying, stereotypes, and more. And these problems can be discussed in readings of literary genres and integrating, of course, the integration of multiculturalism, which is very important. We are going to talk about multiculturalism in the later part. Okay, the integration of multiculturalism and teaching language and literature. Okay, next, number 11, sustainable cities and communities. This is to, or how do we call this? Making our students develop their skills in social participation, okay, especially in developing their business skills. There are many ways that we can teach language and literature to make our students a smart business person and being a keen observer of what's going on in the government and the society. Okay? And number 12, responsible consumption and production. This is to equip our students with especially initiative and discipline and other skills in innovation by utilizing our resources in the community for consumption. For example, in language and literature teaching, we can ask our students to, mm, let me think an example. We can ask our students to make a to cook foods or to make a certain menu or dishes or to create some beverages or wine. They are not only learning this in home economics, but they can also learn cooking and making beverages and language teaching. No, for example, creating wine or food menu out of what is abundant in the community. For example, if the community where you are teaching is abundant of coconut, rice, or any other livestock and more, we can utilize that in language teaching by asking our students to create food, to cook any menu or dishes, even if this is not, even if this is learned mostly in home economics. So this is what we call integration of economics to English language teaching. Students may develop their public speaking. So, for example, while they are cooking foods or making beverages, you can ask them to present it through vlogging or present it online, how to cook this menu, how to cook this dish, how to make this beverage. And with this, they can develop their public speaking skills. Or even after they cook such food, they can sell it. So they can make business out of it. So this is what we already let them develop their marketing skills or even problem solving skills in creating business plans and creative skills with this activity. Okay, and number 13, climate action. This is very prevalent nowadays and very relevant. There are many ways that our students preserve the balance of nature and help the community through their projects and activities in language teaching. For example, like making researches, proposing projects to companies and any organizations, and even to the government, and writing and speaking as regards the preservation of nature, depending on the existing problem of the community. Okay, and number 14, life below water. Life below water. This is still related to climate action mentioned earlier, but specifically, this is about the conservation and use of sustainably the oceans, seas and marine resources. Okay, and the fifth one is the life on land. This global goal is still related to the climate action mentioned earlier, but it specifically refers to protecting, restoring, and promoting, how do we call this, sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, forests, and of course to combat desertification and halts and reverse land degradation, and especially the loss of biodiversity. Okay, and the number 16, peace, justice, and the strong institution. This is quite related to reduce inequalities in number 10, as I mentioned earlier. But this cultivates, most importantly, values of respect and acceptance among learners. This is to teach our learners to promote peaceful and inclusive societies without discrimination and despite diversity. And this is very evident in the communicative language teaching and in purposive communication. Okay, we can ask our student to create multimodal posters and web page presentation. It can be about social discrimination, racial discrimination, gender biases, injustices, and prejudices, and have these can be also have these uploaded on social media or posted in public to raise awareness, because we believe that language is very powerful. It changes people's perspectives if it is communicated persuasively and artistically. But in negative aspect, also in the other side of table, in negative aspect, language also hides the truth and oppress people. This is how the extremist rhetorician work and manipulate people's mind to believe in their side without considering the sides of others. So we should use language in positive way. Okay, and the last goal is partnership for the goals. We can never achieve the 16 mentioned goals. We cannot achieve the seventh goal if we are not working hand in hand to achieve the 16 goals mentioned. This is to promote and strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnerships. The integration of holistic education and multiculturalism paradigm in language teaching is very crucial to make our students equipped with skills in getting well with other cultures. With the emergence of globalization and world Englishes, we should expose our students to communicate in English with other cultures and race to gain knowledge about cultural differences, which is very important. So this is to promote tolerance, acceptance, and respect. If we achieve these goals, there is partnership for global goals. Okay, and one way I have to make it. Okay, the time is so fast. I have to quickly um, say it. In one way, to achieving the goal is to keep pace with the industrial revolution, and others are calling it the education 4.0, the one that we are talking about in the next part. Shall we proceed to the next slide? Okay. I do not know. I think others are very much familiar with the fourth industrial revolution, and we call it education 4.0. Fourth industrial revolution is not a period of time, actually, but an era of development under the 21st century. This is about the fast growing of technology like artificial intelligence. Okay, and in this development, how can we teach our own subject areas in this response to this revolution? Is it still a projector mounted on the board, or maybe a robot that will act as a grammar teacher? So, but our point now is, how can we prepare our students in this era, the fourth industrial revolution? Okay, I don't have to read the three information mentioned earlier, but let me explain all of this in a short word. The first one, it describes the exponential changes to the way we live. So it's about developing students' decision making, problem solving, and of course coordinating with others, and of course service orientation. They should be also well equipped and be oriented with what they will do in the future, okay, or in their future workplace. And then the second one is the revolution is expected to impact all disciplines. As I mentioned, all subjects should play an important role in teaching English. In English, in teaching language and literature, do we still stick to the idea of underlining the subject, circle the verb to master grammatical rules, or what else? Or read the story. After reading the story, you ask the students to make a summary, or after reading the story, you ask your students to make drama. So, or you ask the students to read a story and ask them, how Who are the characters of the story? Are we still sticking to this idea? But I'm not telling you these are wrong. Okay. And the third one, this is the extension of the computerization of the third industrial revolution. So in short word, this is the digital computer and the software and the existence of the multiple uh, of the artificial intelligence. But remember, I'm telling you, the use of technology is very important. However, this does not guarantee that effective learning takes place. Why? Because technology is just an instrument, but what matters more are the types of activities that develop student skills, the art of questioning, the level of difficulty, and the challenging activities that you are providing to the students. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide, please. Okay, the characteristics of the fourth industrial revolution. The first one, let me say it very quickly. The first one, as we see it, improve the quality of life for the world's population. It's about businesses, the importance of businesses and management and income generation is very. These are very crucial. So we can integrate business in language teaching. The second one is human coordination and negotiation despite different cultures. So we should expose our students to coordinate with others, to talk with others of different cultures. The third one is globally competitive. To be globally competitive and being aware of the world issues and status. Okay, we should also make our students keep abreast with the trends and issues around the globe um, in literature class and even in the language class. And then the fourth one is with the emergence of networking, as we all know about that, businesses, sales, stocks, students should communicate effectively and persuasively. Okay, and business must be connected. The last one, there is still one. The last one, business must be connected organizations. So with the marketing and interconnection, art and persuasion is very important. Coordinating with others is very important. And of course, managing people, and also the management skills and the leadership skills are also very important. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. To conclude, as you see about that, we are not only teaching our students to be better and effective in the use of language, or shall we say, make them fluent in writing and speaking, but more so on making them leaders whose language competence is persuasive and convincing to affect and influence others for good. For good. I am repeating it, for good. Affect and influence others for good. Okay? And then with the proliferation of artificial intelligence, jobs might include advanced invention of creativity. So global and interracial relationship also prevails, which require our students to be effective communicator, not only within his or her country or locally, but also with some other people of different races who use different variety of English. Okay, then the last paragraph, shall we say, the language and the entire curriculum. I hope there are also educational leaders who are attending the webinar right now, principals or directors in schools, in academies, that we need also to adapt to the new paradigm shift to the extent that makes our learners to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, and also evaluators. We do not only orchestrate our language curricula to make our students become a good speaker and a writer, but also to make them evaluate what they read, because some students are being deceived by a lot of information nowadays. So we will teach them to also to be to evaluate what they read, write, listen to, speak about, and utilize their communication skills to solve world problems. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. Okay, as you see there, here are the skills that the learners need to thrive. As you see, there are 10 skills that the learners need to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution, okay, which somehow achieved the SDG. We can achieve the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal, if the skills are practiced in teaching and learning process. So you see there, okay, but the most important thing there is the differentiated activities provided in each of the following skills. So you see the skills, the 10 skills. I don't have to read the 10 skills, but I will just tell you the suggested activities in every skill, the negotiation, service orientation. So let's have the suggested activities in teaching language and literature based on the given skills. So let's have the activities in the next slide. Okay, so here are the how do we call this, the suggested activities. You may suggest your own activities, but these are the activities I can suggest in order to achieve the following skills in the fourth industrial revolution. The first one is the cognitive flexibility. For example, how can we develop cognitive flexibility? For example, watching a public speech. You can ask the students to watch a public speech and determine the motives of the speaker. What is the motive of the speaker? Is the motive positive or negative? Is the motive offensive, like that? And is most importantly the impact of the speech to the audience. Okay, so they can analyze about this. And then the second part, you can also ask our students to create a caricature, especially for the elementary levels, for elementary students. Create a caricature of favorite video game characters. They can make a caricature of their favorite video game characters in Mobile Legend. What else? And describe the roles. Okay, and then in the third part, we can also ask our students to trace the location of Athens. Mostly we teach this in geography, but we can also teach this in literature. Tracing the location of Athens from the Google map, for example, and find a place. If there is no internet available, we can also provide the students with a map, with a printed paper, and find a place where the Greek gods and goddesses and the temple is built. And of course, we can also ask them to read a travel guide about this. Okay, for the negotiation skill, we can ask our students to communicate with local government officials or to make a multimodal posters to be posted in the public for advocacy. For example, you can ask our students to make a poster, a tarpaulin, or a web-based presentation that advocates any problems and or the way that raise awareness of some problems in our community. Okay, then we can also ask our students to pair up with others and decide how to solve social media account hack. Okay, and what else? In service orientation skills, we can also ask our students to wear costume of the profession that they envision, the profession that they like in the future. We can ask them to wear a costume of their future profession or career and say something about it. Not only to have a fashion show of what they want to be in the future, and after that nothing happens. We can ask them to say something about it. Why do you like it? And why is it very important to study about this, okay, or to pursue this career? Then we can ask them also to conduct symposium. We can ask or invite someone to conduct symposium in our class to give a career guidance talk, okay, or even immersion in the workplace. We can also do this in our class. Okay, for the skill to develop judgment and decision making, we can ask the students to analyze a survey or graph maps and draw conclusions out of it. Okay, in order for them to make a decision, to arrive at conclusion. Okay, then we can also let our students listen to the story and assess in listening and teaching listening, listen to the story and assess the story's overall appeal. So it's already, when they assess, they are already trying to evaluate what they are listening to. Okay, and the third part is to write. It can be also to write a position paper or a précis on any issues like racial, environmental, or gender issues in the globe. There are many problems that the students can write about, and you can ask them to make a position paper about this. Okay, and the emotional intelligence, which is very important. For example, we can ask our students to choose a character from the story whose traits are similar to you. Okay, after reading the story, you can ask them, who among the characters do you like and why do you like him? Why do you like her? Or who among the characters in the story share common traits with you? Okay, so in this part, students are able to identify themselves, evaluate themselves, and know about themselves. Okay, based on the story. Then we can also ask the students to give an inspirational and argumentative speech on dealing with brokenness, for example, or any problems, brokenness, family problem, and even about dealing with death. Okay, and then we can also make our students have or write a reflection paper or even a reaction paper about the story being read. But the problem nowadays, some teachers are asking the students to make a reflection paper and reaction paper without any guidance. They are just telling the students, okay, after reading the story, after reading the text, or after listening to or watching a movie, for example, or listening to any video presentation, make a reaction paper, and after that, submit the reaction paper, and nothing happens. So in making a reaction paper, a reflection paper, we should give our students a guide question. We should give them guide questions to, how do we call it, to test their understanding and comprehension about the story, about the video. Okay, the next slide, please. Coordination with others. So one activity that would develop the coordination with others is, of course, mostly in cooperative learning activity. Like, for example, playing treasure hunting in groups. You can ask the students to, when they play treasure hunting, especially for lower levels or even for high school, you can also ask them, or even for college students, they play treasure hunting and then you provide them with the instructions and they read the instructions. So it's one way of testing our students to understand if they follow the instruction or not. Okay, we can integrate this in grammar or in literature, like playing treasure hunting. You have to hunt the treasure, and the treasure are the different genres of literature, and it is hidden in some areas, and then they read and something. Keep on reading, and understanding, following instructions. Okay, and then with this they can coordinate with others, help one another. Okay, and then create a group pecha presentation. I think you are very much familiar with this. It's like a it's like a PowerPoint presentation, but there are no text, there are no words. They need to do is to present a photo in 20 minutes and then say something about the photo. Okay, so it can be presenting a pecha kucha in order to promote tourism industry in your municipality, in your locality, like that. Okay, then what else? Sharing good practices and similarities of one's own religion. Okay, for example, what are the practices and similarities that we have? Okay, and make schematic diagram, for example, out of it. So you ask them to be united despite their different beliefs. Okay, then people management. For the people management, it's about communicating with group members in polite and diplomatic ways. As I mentioned earlier, we are not only teaching our students to be a good speaker, but we should also teach them to how to use language in polite and in diplomatic ways, which is the most important thing in effective communication. Okay, dealing with conflict. This is also one of the most important goals of communication. If the students are able to solve communication breakdown, they're able to solve communication problem. This is the most important thing. Okay, dealing with conflict of two different parties using appropriate languages. Can be a problem of different races, problem of different cultures. Okay, problem of different, how do we call this, beliefs or ideologies. So how can you solve these problems? How can you intervene with them using appropriate languages? Okay, then leading the group on, for example, leading the group on doing and following instructions. There are so many activities and how do we call this, methods we can do based on the given skill. Okay, then the creativity skill. For example, we can ask our students to draw a self version of mobile phone. So in this way, you can also ask them to invent something, okay, or create a song using any famous tune which summarizes one's comprehension of the story read, can be, okay, or creating a stage drama as an adaptation of the poem being read. Okay, then the critical thinking, for example, arranging unscrambled sentences or words to come up with intelligible ones. Okay? Or gathering information on the causes of flash flood or any uh, means of calamities in your locality and present a report out of it. Okay? Or using adjectives which descriptive words are appropriate for describing physically challenged people or to describe to avoid sexism, how to use appropriate language or words. Okay, and the complex problem solving, identifying, for example, stories, characters, weaknesses, and how these affect the end of the story. Or it can be giving out perception on what makes Jollibee. Jollibee is one of the famous, how do we call this, food corporation in the Philippines or in some other countries, but this is originally from the Philippines. For example, give out perception on what makes Jollibee or McDonald's the most patronized company in India, in Pakistan, or where else in the USA or in the Philippines. Okay, and then presenting a role play on the problems given by coming up with solution. I am telling everybody, when you ask the students to make a role play, please make sure that in presenting a role play, they are trying to solve a problem, not merely to present a certain scenario. Okay, so let's proceed to the next slide. The time is very limited. I'm very sorry. Okay, the community. Since we only have a very limited time, can I just proceed to the different activities of the communicative language teaching? Okay, the next slide. Okay, this one. Have you ever asked or wondered that our students get a perfect score in grammar tests, but they do not speak and write very well? Have you observed that? Or they are excellent in grammar, but they do not speak and write very well when asked to perform or when asked to do so. This is because mastering grammar does not guarantee effective communication. Mastering the language structures perfectly does not mean it is used effectively. Mastering the language structures perfectly does not mean it is used effectively. We know about that because language is not mastered or memorized, but language is communicated and used in situations and in different contexts. Okay, that is why I'm providing here with you, okay, the different activities in order to contextualize the teaching of language to make it very communicative. So, for example, number one, simulate a telephone conversation, observing correct pronouns and antecedents, for example. Or it can be create a promotional video about the city's famous delicacy, observing the rules of subject and verb agreement, for example. Okay, they're trying to promote the delicacy, the cultures that they have. Okay, and they can present it through a brochure. They can make a brochure and distribute it, or they can present it in any in any social media platforms, or it can be present a TikTok video giving some pieces of advice, no, and not only to make a dance move in TikTok, but making a TikTok video giving advice on brokenness, for example, about love life, or even about family using the different structures of sentences. Okay, now let's proceed to the next part. Another example, CLT activities in teaching listening. For example, watch a video from YouTube and create a short minute vlog in response to the strengths and weaknesses of such video. Okay, so we are trying to teach our students to evaluate about the video. Okay, then listen to a podcast can be and express how such podcast affects the views and beliefs of the listeners. Okay, another example, watch the city or provincial address or the State of the Nation address of the government officials, for example, and point out the ideas which you like and are beneficial to the community and present it in class. So in this class, in language and teaching class, we are trying to teach our students to actively participate in national or government or any political activities. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in speaking, we can ask our students in groups, for example, to present a digital story telling about their experience being bullied and being discriminated in the society. Okay, or in pairs, it can be taking turns in asking for the positive attributes, qualities of your partner, and present it in class, like introducing him or her as a very important person. Remember, we cannot develop students' self-esteem or confidence in public speaking unless we immerse them in every group. Do not just let the students speak right away individually. You can first have them get involved in the groups and then talk something about it, and then after that, individual presentation. Okay, or make a self-reflection. Another example is for speaking, make a self-reflection to assess your potentials in order for them to know who they are, to know their worth, so they can assess about themselves, their potentials, and list down what your potentials are and make a short video or podcast or any forms or channels that how you will develop those potentials to achieve your dreams and goals in life. So have you noticed in here it's very holistic. Students are also trying to understand themselves more in class. Okay, about their lives. Next slides, please. Okay, can be also, after reading a text, you can group the students according to their areas of interest based on the Gardner's multiple intelligences. For example, this is what we call can be a blended learning, like after reading a text or listening or after learning a certain grammar rules, you group them according to their intelligences, according to their talents and skills. For example, you can ask them to present a musical video about the what they have understood or present a mimicry or write a story or what else. Okay, and then another example is to read a social survey or graphs about the common pressing issues. This is very important. We should expose our students to analyze and to read a survey or graph about the problems in the world right now, like poverty, rape, environmental decline, political turmoil, war in Ukraine, for example, and glean some information about this, evaluating the text credibility, collating problems, and even coming up with solutions. Okay, or using the discourse analysis or literary lens in analyzing the literary text, like any different literary lens that we can utilize depending on the genre of literature. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, from the movie, for example, or text social media channels, make a position paper which recommends whether or not they need to be read. We should expose our students that not all information they read from the social media or from even from the researches are believable or valid. So we should teach them to evaluate what they read, what they listen to, whom they talk to, or what they watch. Okay? Or make an outline or graphic organizer to summarize the text read. And then another, make we can ask them to make a sketchy or saying or slogan about any issues which inspires people and post it on Facebook, Instagram, or any social media account. We can utilize the lessons in the the lessons figures of speech or literary devices, and we can ask them to make a catchy saying, catchy slogan about the issues across the globe to inspire people. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is one thing I have to say, I have to quickly and briefly say about the multiculturalism and ELT. Let me say something about this instead of reading what is mentioned here in the PowerPoint presentation. I remember my students before who once told me that learning English makes him forget and devalue the Filipino cultures or the native culture. I remember this from my former students. Remember, English is not anymore the language of the peripheries. I am referring to the language of the native people. But English is the country of the world. English is the language of the world. I mean, David Crystal once said that English is not owned by the US and the UK, but it is owned by the world because we have our own varieties of English. No, you know about that, such as Indian English, Filipino English, and in the paradigm of multiculturalism, we can promote our own native cultures through the use of English. We can even share our own native culture across the globe through the use of English. Okay, so we can study and enrich our own cultures through contextualization. For example, making a legend, making a short story of your own place using English language and share it with people in other countries. It can be like that. Okay, so let's proceed to the next. I think I have to proceed um, to the different activities about multiculturalism. I have to read it. Can we proceed to the next slide? Okay, these are the different activities if you want to integrate multiculturalism. So get the different practices of every religion, can be studying religion and world beliefs. Get the different practices of every religion and write down the positive impact in the society through oral presentation. Okay, or conduct an interview with a certain group of indigenous people about their arts and promote their products by making an infomercial or digital poster. So you're already helping some indigenous people to promote their culture. Or write an essay observing nonsense sa non-sexist language. Okay? Or invite a foreigner or a tourist and ask him or her to say about his or her culture and how she or she likes about the culture of about your own culture. A foreigner can also say something about your own culture. Okay, and then it can be also some signages spot some signages in the community, in public places, or billboards, what else, and videos that perpetuate racism, socioeconomic status, class, physical discrimination, and how are we going to address it? Especially some advertisement that perpetuate racism or even discrimination of our colors, especially in cosmetic products. Some of the core point discriminates people of different color. So how can we address this problem? So we can also integrate this in our language and literature class. That's multiculturalism. And what else? Simulate can be also simulate a conversational situations between you and a foreigner and take note of the words that are offensive because we are talking about English in our own country, but we don't know that this usage might be offensive in other country who also speaks English. Okay, now let's proceed to the next slide. Okay, do you see it there? The ways okay, the ways of promoting the last part. I am including some tips in managing students' behavior in language and literature class. Always remember, no matter how good you are in your lesson, even if you have the full mastery of the subject matter, but if you do not stimulate students' attention and evoke their interest, your being knowledgeable of the subject matter is of no use. There are a lot of smart and intelligent teachers who are even having a good command in the use of language, but they fail to make their students learn effectively in the lesson. This is uh, this is because students are not motivated and not ready to learn. Besides, some students find the lesson threatening because they are offensively corrected by the teacher, for example. Therefore, they do not like to speak anymore. So let's try to read the different techniques in managing students' behavior in language classroom. Can we click it, sir, please? I think go back. You have to click, no, the previous slide. We have to click each of the part. Mm, Anyway, it's okay. Let me just read each of the following techniques. Correct written outputs on account of the specific target skills. When you ask the students to write something, and then you have the focused skill, If you ask them to focus only on the punctuation marks, when you correct the writing, focus only on correcting the use of punctuation mark. Do not correct the other grammatical errors because it adds burden on your part, and it's also um, how do we call this? Um, it's also intimidating on the part of the students. Oh, I have a bloody paper. Everything has been corrected. So focus only in one skill when you correct. If you want to focus on the use of punctuation, use of the subject-verb agreement, focus on each of them respectively, not to correct all of them. Okay, then remind the students of the class rules most of the time. This is very important to make them aware of the routine every single day. Then employ outdoor class immersion or excursion. Students that do not only learn within the four walls of the classroom, but they can also learn from their own experience. Okay, then use technology in challenging and thought-provoking ways. It's useless if you use a different channels of technology, projector, for example, but you are only reading what is there, or you're only asking the students to merely read it and then answer the comprehension questions without even providing them with activities that would provoke their critical thinking skills. So everything is useless. Okay. And then one thing, do not use the English speaking drive to impose punishment. For example, if you are not speaking English, you are punished. You will be fined. You have to pay something. Okay, do not discourage the students to learn the second language, okay, because of the punishment. Then impose the use of reinforcement. If the students are performing good, then you give reinforcement or rewards. Then wrap up the lessons with students attitude towards the topic. Do not just end the lesson by saying, have you learned something about the lesson? Yes. Okay, and what is it? Do not only stop by this, but you can also ask the student to evaluate which part of the lesson do you like, which part of the lesson you don't like. Are you happy about the story? Why are you not happy? Like that. We can also ask them to evaluate, to wrap up everything. Okay, then do not correct students' mistakes consistently. At all times, when they get mistake consistently, it's very, how do we call this one? Derogatory, or it's very how do we call this, offensive on their part. But I'm not telling you that not to correct all of them, but when you make some correction, we can do recasting. For example, if a student commits errors in grammar, for example, I will give you a situation. For example, a student says, yesterday, um I am not feeling well yesterday. For example, I am not feeling well yesterday, instead of I was not feeling well yesterday. You cannot say directly, oh no, that's wrong. It's not I am not feeling well, it's I was feeling well. You can say it in a manner that is recasting, that is not evident or overt. For example, you are not feeling well. You were not feeling well yesterday. Okay, yesterday also I was not feeling well. So this is what we call correcting the student in recasting manner, not direct and not overt. Okay, what else? Utilize subject integration across disciplines. Do not only stick to language, but teach also mathematics, teach also physical education or music or arts in English or in language. Then contextualize and indigenize the lessons. You can talk about your own cultures in English. You can talk about your own practices and festivals in English. Okay, employ communicative language teaching than prescriptive analysis. Instead of directly discussing the rules of grammar, the meaning, and then the types of grammar, talk about first a story, or provide them first with video in which the grammar rules are used. Okay, then use mother tongue. You can use mother tongue to expound and emphasize essential ideas. Okay, as an auxiliary language. And then what else? Utilize work from home assignment. This is very important, which involves the participation of family members, so that the students could feel that I am doing the assignment, I am doing my homework, and the family members are with me, or it can be that my friends are with me. Okay, that's it. Now let's proceed to the next slide. Okay. That ends my talk. I am sorry that I am in a hurry because of the time constraint, but I hope I am able to share something valuable today. Let me end my talk today by saying, let's proceed to the next slide, sir. By saying the best English teacher does not produce fluent and smart English learners. but he or she produces competent learners whose English unites all languages. Thank you so much.
Sir, do we have a time for the questions?
Okay, we still have a few minutes for the question and answer session.
Okay,
If
sir.
you have some questions, you can type it in the chat box.
Okay, sir. Sir, it was a really wonderful presentation given by you. So, guys, if you have any questions regarding this topic, you can ask from the our very talented speaker. Sir, do we have a permission to share this
Yes, of
presentation
course.
with the audience?
I am permitting you to do so. Yes, of course.
Okay, sir. So, guys, I will share my email in the comment box. So, if you need any, if you need slides, you can email us. We will send you. So, if you have any questions regarding this topic, you may ask.
Pequeñita pero guapísima. Es la de mi abuela, que llama mi abuela, mi hermana. Y aquí está Osman, que igual está terminando. Está terminando de trabajo, ¿no? Ay, mira.
Sir, we have a question.
How can we encourage students to participate in the lessons? Okay, okay, it's a very good question. Actually, some of the students, it depends on their behavior. Okay, some students don't like to participate because they are shy, or there are so many reasons why they don't like to participate. But one of the most important activities that you could provide in order for the students to participate in the lessons is to have them in groups, or what else, to provide them with the reinforcements. It can be the tangible reinforcement or any forms of reinforcements or rewards in order for them to participate in the lesson. What else, to make the lesson very relevant, that would actualize and contextualize the real life situation in order to make the lesson very interesting on their part. There are many ways to encourage our students to participate in the lessons. Have I answered your query, Niosa Gomez? Okay, what else? Which are the general questions asked for the literature testing in the ESL Which are the general questions asked for the literature testing in the ESL class from the target group? What do you mean by general question asked for the literature testing? Mr. Fakar? Another question. Okay, in what way that mother tongue is beneficial to be integrated in teaching English in the 21st century classroom? Okay, I think there are a lot of questions. I am confused which I am going to answer. How can we deal with students who have strong opinions about important topics like racism? Um, we can ask them to do some researches, or to immerse them within the groups, especially to the group who experience, or to the group of students, or students who experience such racism or any stereotypes. It can be an interview, interviewing with students or with people who experience such stereotypes or racism. And going back, because there are lots of questions, going back to the integration of mother tongue, of course, students can not easily learn the second language unless they have a strong background in the first language. So we can integrate the multi the integrate we can integrate the MTB or the mother tongue base in the language class by introducing some, for example, some local stories in our city, or some local stories in the provinces, and share it in the class, or have them read a story and highlights the different local colors or local words. How can we teach prose and poetry? Prose and poetry are very broad because there are lots of types of prose and lots of types of poetry, but it talks about generally teaching a literature. That's asked by Gerald. So how can we make them, in order for them not to get bored? There are many activities that you utilize, like you provide blended learning or utilize differentiated activities that would also develop their skills and their talents, like singing, dancing, or there are so many ways, for example. um, uh, but we don't have we should not fail also to include that when we teach literature, the prose and poetry, we should also, like the gradual psychological unfolding before we present the topic, we should also ask the students about what are they going to learn in this story or in this poem, or what are the motive questions. And of course, we should also give them um, we should decode the words. We should decode the words and give the meaning of the difficult words for them to understand thoroughly the story that they're about to read. Okay. And then what else? There are so many ways, like after reading the story, they can create a brochure, or they can create a digital anime, or they can, what else, they can go to a certain immersion or excursion, that their learning is not only limited within the four walls of the classroom. Okay. Yes, this is correct. From Diaries of an English Major, students have a very short listening span. That is why we should not give a very long talk. If we are going to explain something, if we have to explain something, we can only do it in a 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and the rest of that is to provide different activities, provide them something to read. What else? Provide them something to read and let them analyze what they are reading. How can students who have short attention span like listening? Okay, especially in teaching grammar. Okay, especially in teaching grammar, do not just merely give direct instruction. For example, give reading the meaning of adjective, for example, different types of adjective, and after that, give a test how to use them. Instead of letting them watch a video or read a story and analyze the adjectives being used there. So that's indirect instruction. But I'm not telling you direct instruction is useless. It still depends on the learners. I am telling you there's no such thing as the best method in teaching. There's no such thing as the best method or the most effective method in teaching, because the effectiveness of the method depends primarily on the student's interest, students' learning styles, even with the nature of the subject matter, or with the availability of the materials, and also with the ability of the teachers to handle the lesson, or to use or utilize such activity or strategy.
Sir, do we have a time for the questions, or if you are in hurry, you may leave? Hello, sir. Am I audible? Hello, sir.
Hello?
Sir, I asked that if you are in hurry, you may leave, or do we have more time for the questions?
Okay. Because in 2 minutes, I still have to attend another classes.
Okay, sir. Then you may leave.
Okay, if there are no more questions,
Yes, sir. We have many
okay.
questions, But if
Okay.
you are
However, if you have some questions, you can message me in
okay,
any forms or any channels like the messenger, or connect with me in Facebook.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. It was really wonderful presentation given by you, and thank you so much for this lecture and for this presentation. We are very thankful to you. And now, guys, I'm going to share the link, feedback form link in the comment. So please fill that form in order to get certificate. But sir, if you want to leave, you may leave.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Guys, please fill that form and make sure that write your correct name and email. And sorry that sir couldn't give you answers of your questions because he was in hurry. He has some other works, important work. Therefore, he has to leave. If any of you do not fill that form, they will not get the certificate. And you can follow our Facebook page. Link is given in the description of this video. You can follow this page, and if you need these slides, you can email us. So guys, we have 5 minutes. Please fill that form, and then we will end this session. I'm again sending this link again and again so that you all can see this link. Guys, please write your correct name. And follow our Facebook page and subscribe this channel for more webinars. So guys, if you need these slides, go to our Facebook page. It is called the World Literature Webinars, and there you will get the email of our organization, and you can email us if you need these slides. Guys, we have 2 minutes. After that, we will end this meeting. So please fill that form. Yes, you can get this presentation. You can email us. Yes, sir. You can get copy of this presentation. Uh, I am going to write our email here in this comment box and note this email and email us. We will send you this copy of presentation. Guys, I have sent you our email and you can email us for this copy of presentation. And yes, sir, Fakar Shehzad, we will arrange our webinar with the staff impression in future. So guys, you will get the certificate within this week. Now we are going to end this meeting. So thank you so much for being here with us today and thank you so much.